loves to watch. She loves to watch. She loves to watch. As the house plays havoc, little girl's heart, she watches Mr. Silver She caught the clothes in the dark. Who others walk with fun, who exercise. She looks through the window in the other girl's eyes. She loves to watch.
Hi, Art Fein here. Art Fein's Poker Party coming to you from Hollywood with some real special guests. Far left, Vince, first time in, but you've seen many shows, haven't you?
First, I'm constantly. Channel 3 is actually
no,
my TV gets Channel 3. That's it.
Yeah, except it shows you the last time you watched. It's on 77. It's
77,
about a year.
yeah.
Okay, Vince Waldron, welcome to the show.
Hey,
nice to see you, Vince. We'll talk about you a little more in a minute. Next to him, Dan Castellaneta.
Hey, Art. Yeah, Castellaneta.
Netta. I'm sorry. I was so proud of knowing how to pronounce it.
That's close.
And I had it wrong. And we'll talk more about you, too, in a second. And on my left, Doug Fieger, of whom we know a lot. This is like your 25th appearance on the show?
Oh, at least.
Something like that.
At least. I'm going to get a watch soon.
And the empty seat is for Todd Everett, or for the prophet.
Elijah may be here later.
Hasn't shown up yet, but he might today. These two guys are pals, and this is the way we get acquainted and get on the show. Vince has done a lot of cool things that I really like, which usually is a recipe for failure. But in your case, you've done some. you've made some. You know, if I like you, it's the kiss of death. But
I don't know. You know, we were talking the other week. I got my little Social Security office sent me my rundown of all of my income statements for the last 27 years, and it was shocking. It was shocking. It made me reevaluate the meaning of success in this fine country.
Well, mine is really
I don't think I broke your record, though.
No,
You said
my
yours,
record of lifetime earnings is really.
But I interrupted you, Art.
So what I know that you've done, what I know that I like is the writing, co-authoring the Ronnie Spector book.
Yeah, Be My Baby.
Be My Baby, which I didn't know you at the time, and I just thought, and I'm not much of a writing expert. I just kind of, like I know what I like. I said, this thing reads good. I just really liked it a lot. And I was kind of tickled to meet you finally after that, just because I thought it was so well done.
Oh, thanks.
And,
yeah. It was an interesting project. I actually called Ronnie. I wanted to do a Phil Spector book. I wanted to do a book on Phil Spector, and then a fellow named Mark Rabowski, I found out, had just done an unauthorized biography of Phil Spector and got into such hot water. Phil, of course, was throwing lawsuits at him right and left, and I said, that'd be a lot of trouble. Why don't I just approach his estranged wife, because she's probably got as good a story as Phil does. I mean, she was involved with the guy during those days, and sure enough, I called, and it was one of those situations where you call a lawyer who calls another lawyer who calls another manager who says, well, we can put you in touch with the elusive Miss Spector, but you've got to sign a contract. So it was this crazy deal. And then when I finally met her, she was as sweet as can be, living at that time on West End Avenue, New York. And man, she just poured her heart out, and I just turned on the tape recorder. And,
I thought it was it wasn't a mean-spirited book. I mean, considering she was the rejected one, that it seemed pretty nice, I thought.
Yeah, that was probably before. I mean, she's in court right now trying to get back royalties from.
You know what, the New York Times story quoted him at the end last year when he was going out of the court session with Ronnie, and it's asked to comment on the proceedings. Mr. Spector said, it's so sad to watch good love go bad.
Ah.
That's the Everly Brothers. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Also, I know you've written stuff about sitcoms and about sci-fi. No, not sci-fi.
Yeah, television sitcoms. I actually got, and I won't be talking about that much. I was on the Learning Channel, called up a couple weeks ago, and I've become this pundit for the world of television situation comedies, and I think it's mainly because nobody's ever written a really good book about television yet. I think writing a television scholarship is at the point maybe. In the sort of the point at which film criticism was back in the 40s, where there's the confidential and the true screen romances sort of genre and then nothing else. So I think television now is just at the point where people are starting to take it seriously. Anyway, so I wrote a book where I took television seriously, but it's still television.
What's
and
the
still
book
had some
called?
Fun. Classic sitcoms. And I did one called The Official Dick Van Dyke Show book.
Which is a rundown of every show.
Yeah, it's basically, classic sitcoms is kind of taking a microscope to the 10 all-time most influential sitcoms of all time, and just sort of finding out who wrote them, why are they good, why are these shows that matter. Anyway, the Learning Channel called me up and said, we're doing a documentary about the behind the scenes of situation comedies, and I thought, that'll be fun, I'll to promote the book. So I go on this show, and it turns out it's one of those you know, You Are There interviews where they have the camera set up, you know, on one, you know, the invisible interviewer behind the camera, and you're just sitting there pontificating for, you know, an hour, and they cut it down and use 2 sound bites. And so I woke up, I had a terrible cold. I was, you know, my head was groggy. I had like a cold sore on my lip, and I thought, I can't do this. I called them up and said, reschedule. They said, we can't. We've got a room at the Sportsman's Lodge booked. We've got to have you in today. So I show up, I drag myself out of bed, and then the interviewer just, you know, was kind of like, I think he had the same head cold I had, and he's trying to figure out what to ask me. And so I'm ready for this, like, in-depth. Finally, television gets its moment. This is the time when television scholarship comes of age on the Learning Channel. And so I'm ready to I'm in my high pontifical mode, and the guy behind the camera goes, okay, first question. He never looks up from his pad. He goes, situation comedy. Why?
Listen,
Well, maybe that's why they call it the Learning Channel instead of the Teaching Channel.
Exactly.
They're trying to figure it out themselves.
well, you know, my value on the show is I draw things out of people. Vince is normally a very taciturn person, but we've got him to really spell out right now.
Just a little bit.
Just thank you very much. The other thing I wanted to mention that you did, and let me just say it quickly, is the Harvey Pekar play that ran in Hollywood, American Splendor, which was knocked me out. I was so happy to have met you around that time because I was broke and you gave me free passes in to see it like 4 times.
Oh, wow.
And maybe that's why it went out of business. But it was so great, and one of the reasons it was great was because Dan Castellaneta played Harvey Pekar.
That's right, I was Harvey. I was Harvey for a year. I was a male Harvey Pekar.
In Hollywood.
We'll talk about your other stuff, but this thing so the Pekar thing so fascinates me. You were so great as it. Is there a film of it? Is there a videotape of one whole performance?
Is there a tape? But there's actually, we documented, we did have a tape of the performance. Somewhere. I know Vince has got one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's like a, you know.
It's just so damn, it's just so great, and it's just, there it went, you know.
We did it on KCRW as a radio play.
Really?
Well, yeah, we did it on KCRW for a half-hour radio play. We took it down to the San Diego Comic Book Convention, which is really great because that's a different kind of. It's very interesting because it was. I don't think anybody's ever done play at a comic book convention. Yeah. But it was really very well received. People were very, very impressed and also really loved it. Yeah. And it was really the most interesting. One of the interesting things they did was to do do something theatrical at a place where people are walking around dressed like the Wolverine, or
And we were walking down the aisle, and this is like a scene that you couldn't imagine, something so perfect. We're walking down this convention center in San Diego, where each August, something like 5,000 comic book, sci-fi, and Star Trek fans gather, and the conversations, the little snippets you hear in the hallway. I mean, we walk by this one guy, he says, "No, I demand to know the source of your dwarf knowledge." And then you just walk by, and this is the caliber of conversation.
As long as we've got your attention for a second, Vince, what happened in the play? Why isn't it all over the world? Why isn't there a spectacular Technicolor movie in CinemaScope?
That's a story.
And that's a whole.
No, I make it. Maybe I'll ask you something else because I want to talk to Dan. Okay. But it's a shame. It's a damn shame that was one of the. I mean, Harvey's great. You were great, and you're great for producing it. It just I'm just full of praise today. I'm just like I'm a typical talk show host, I guess. But I choose the guests. That's the difference than the other talk show hosts.
And you mean what you say.
Yes, right.
You didn't have to talk to a PR person
to find out what you're
keep
doing.
pushing us on here.
Now, I haven't mentioned yet that you're the voice of Homer Simpson.
That's right.
Can you say something to me in Simpson?
Yes, in Homerese. I don't usually do this, but since it's public access and for the public, I have to have a little cold.
Thanks very much. Before we get into your latest production, which is what we're here for, to talk about the album you just made, I do have some standard first questions. And Vince, what's the first record you bought?
First record was probably the Beatles' second album.
How do you think it was the second, in as much as you were 6 months late?
Yeah, it was. I wonder why. I think it was because we bought singles before that, and we weren't allowed to buy albums, and it took me that long to scrape together.
Well, no, I said the first record. I didn't say the first album.
Oh, the first record. Yeah, I can't even remember the first single.
That's
you
a
know,
very important moment in some people's
You know,
lives.
it's funny. No, I remember I was an LP kid. You know, what can I say?
Okay.
But it was $2.59 at Goldblatt's department store on State Street in Chicago, and you could save $1 by buying the mono version. That dates me.
And you know what's funny is that it costs just as much to make these now. They don't cost $2.59. Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
Also, the first cool show you saw, like either the first good rock and roll show, either the first rock and roll show at all, or the first one that really knocked you out.
Gosh, well, now I'm going to jump ahead. It's kind of time warp. I didn't see a lot of rock shows. The first rock show I saw that really knocked me out was probably Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, and Mink DeVille. Elvis Costello being the headliner, and Mink DeVille and Nick Lowe being the warm-up acts at UC Wilson Auditorium at the University of Cincinnati. I saw that when I was in college, and it was just it was Elvis Costello's first or second run through the U.S. back in '77. I think he was promoting My Aim Is True at the time. And it was just a great show. And Mink DeVille didn't impress me a whole lot, but you know, Nick Lowe was it made me run out and buy Nick Lowe's album, which for a while I actually eclipsed Elvis Costello's first album in my college infatuation.
Okay, well, so these are the qualification questions to be on the show, so you have to answer them. Dan, same thing. First record.
The first one I bought with my own money,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty much.
I would probably have to say Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Because I remember I was over at a friend's house, and that's when first I heard it on the radio. I was like, what is that, you know? This is like 7 years after the fact. And then I said, I must have this. And then I saw the cover at a friend's house, and the way they treated records was they had it like under their bed, and it was like they have a Bob Dylan thing and a Joni Mitchell, you know, sleeve.
In the same sleeve,
you know, and so I found the Sgt. Pepper. I said, where's the record, you know? And I just remember sitting, because all the guys that were in this house, they were all musicians. So
This is the college?
This was like in high school, I think. And the brother, he played piano, so I said, play this one. And he would just play it on the piano. And I said, well, it's not good enough. I got to go. So I went out and bought, that was the first, I think the first record I bought with my own money, because, again, it was, yeah, like Vince said, we're about the same age. I never really had money to buy records, you know, or it was only everything that my father had, or you know, my mother, or whatever they collected is what I listened to, you know. It was like, which was basically Jimmy Durante or records, or Danny Kaye records, or South Pacific, or whatever.
My favorite, Danny Kaye.
Yeah, Danny Kaye. Those are great records.
How about I don't know where you were. Were you in where were you living?
In Chicago.
Oh, you're
I lived
Chicago?
that's where we met. You know, we met. We used to be in the Second City company, the touring company, and actually that's where we talked about where we used to, after a show, we would go to Vince's house and we'd see a Leave It to Beaver episode and have a very deep discussion about the sociological, sort of like where his book came from, and also he had Harvey Picar lying around, and I go, someday we got to do this.
I
as a
should
stage.
mention that those of you who don't frequent comic book stores for their literature, that's where I go. Actually, I only like one book, and I don't go to comic book stores, but I'll pick up American Splendor by Harvey Pekar, because it's just slice of life stuff. It's really great. So you're in Chicago. By the way, all this time that you were in Chicago, no, I'd left Chicago already by then, because I'm so much older than you guys. I mean, a lot. So my first show was the Howard Miller Show in Chicago.
Oh, Howard Miller. I remember Howard Miller.
Except it was Chuck Berry, Little Brenda Lee, and Charlie Gracie, and it was 50s.
Yeah, Howard Miller, by the time Dan and I came of age, was doing
he was like doing a
Durafab
right wing.
commercials.
He was doing a right wing sort of radio show. He was sort of like predated.
Well, he was not,
Rush
but
Limbaugh.
believe me, when I was 11 and listening to him, he wasn't hip then either. I mean, he was begrudgingly playing the records I liked.
Yeah.
So what about the first show you saw?
The first rock show would be Paul McCartney and Wings Over America. And it's because my sister's boyfriend had tickets and gave them to me, so I saw him at the stadium, where the Blackhawks and the Bulls used to play on Madison, and that was pretty great.
Was that after? Doug's here. Hi, Doug.
How you doing?
Were you? Was the McCartney Wings Over America tour after the George Harrison tour?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have the dates on those?
So, well, George Harrison was 74, and Wings Over America was like 76. Yeah, 76. Late 76.
All right, half of this show's been leading up to a music. Well, it's a music show, but now Dan's put out his own record, which I'm going to show you. but it's pointless. Not the record, not the record.
Yeah.
But the showing it to you is pointless because you can't buy it. You know, you're not supposed to promote things for sale here. Well, this record is not for sale.
It's not for sale.
This is your
At any
record
price.
of songs you wrote, similar to what the Beatles did.
Yeah.
And you're singing some of them, and you wrote all of them, and it's called Two Lips, T-W-O, Lips. Thank you. And you gave me a copy, and it's really neat. Now, when you call it Not the Lost Beatles album,
Right.
you did kind of get stuck in like August 67, didn't you? In
Yes.
other words, it's a flower power.
It's this sort of psychedelic, somewhere in between Pepper and the
Magical
White
Mystery
Album,
Tour.
you know, somewhere, Magical Mystery Tour area.
Now let's take a listen to the first cut right now, a minute or a minute and a half of Dog Who's Chasing After a Ball.
Non-video.
I'm just a dog who's chasing after a ball. I'm going after things I never really wanted to. Don't ask me why, because I really haven't got a clue. Which way to go, I don't know which way at all. I'm just a dog who's chasing after a ball. When I was very small, it wasn't very hard at all. I know exactly what I want in that day. But I'm afraid it's true. I've turned into a throwback book and not remember how we used to play.
Sure is a period piece. Of
Yeah.
about
Actually, that one, I'd say, if you're really a Beatles aficionado, you date that as not that would be like an August '69 song that was like one after 909 of a song that the Beatles wrote but never recorded back in like '64. That's how I
the
place
kind
that
of technical
one.
points we make on this show. So
Okay.
The crack, and they're not on crack, the crack crew here was so fast with that we didn't get a chance to really intro it. So that song, who's singing that?
Buddy of mine from high school, actually, Mike Dunn. And he had this, one time we were like singing karaoke, and we had some of those, and he had a Beatles song on it, and he was singing Strawberry Fields, and I went, wow, he sounds pretty close to John Lennon. So I said, I'll keep a note of that. I don't know what for, but I remember that. And then when I was going to do this and I'm thinking about doing it, I said, I could do John Lennon, but I think Michael could like do it pretty close.
So the germination of the album was that you've always liked the Beatles, you like this period.
Right.
You have had musical ambitions before?
No, I never really, other than, you know, grabbing a guitar and playing, you know, learning the chords in the music book, and I can play, and got to the point where I could play well enough to at least play it for other musicians
To tell them what to do.
to tell them what to do. And on this, and I got some really great musicians, a couple who backed Liz Phair in her, I guess her latest
That's Chicago.
tour. Yeah, she's from Chicago, but they're not from Chicago. They're right here. Buddy Judge did the lead guitar on it. Rick Mink was the drummer through the whole thing. Laura Hall, who helped me arrange, she did keyboards on that.
So you know, this is similar to who's the Getty guy that directs symphonies? Another, you know, it's the fact that you
PDQ Bach?
No,
No,
one of the
that's
Getty heirs once in a while pays $500,000 and has a concert of what he's created, the symphonic stuff. The reason I'm making the comparison is actual art is stuff you want to do. You're not selling it.
Yeah.
You really want to do this.
I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
I had a dream, and I'm sure any Beatle fan has had a dream, where I found a record, and it was like an old Capitol, you know, with a black label, in my sister's room, on a little, you know, portable phono.
With the rainbow around.
Yeah.
Oh, that one. Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
black, yeah.
And it was like, it was actually around circa 1966. It was like a rubber soul revolver kind of thing, and I was like, wow, and they were all original songs. I don't have this record, you know, and I just.
Were you in Borneo or something like that? You were actually in an urban city and you didn't know those songs.
Yeah, it was like, it was songs I hadn't heard off of any Beatle record, and I thought if I could capture that, grab one of those out of my subconscious, you know, and do it. So I set about just doing it, just to do it.
Yeah.
I landed like a commercial. I got a 9-camera commercial for ESPN, which was enough money to do this. And I thought I'd do it for like Christmas gifts and stuff. And it sort of became Stone Soup because I wound up meeting all of these terrific musicians. One guy by the name of John Bryan is a local musician in LA who owns a what you call a Chamberlain, which is the forerunner to the Mellotron, which you hear on Strawberry Fields, the flutes, you know, it has, and he had one, and he played on it, and it was like, wow, you know, it was really fun. Kurt Anderson and Laura Hall, who are in a band called Trinket, and he's got all set up in his own house, you know, and it was like really did a great job.
Record collectors, but I know I'm holding a rarity here.
Yeah.
Those strange ones. So you, but then you did sing. Let's put the second.
Yeah, I sing on the second. I sing.
By the way, the fact, you know, we don't like, you don't know. I hate videos. So anything we do here are unvideos. So that's why the thing comes down. Unvideo.
The curtain will
the second
fall.
cut, which is Deborah. If you have the second cut on the CD ready, we would appreciate it. Now, Deborah was a good song.
Deborah, there is Deborah in the garden. I see Deborah. Oh, Deborah, won't you pardon me as I reach out and take you by the hand? Listen to my plan. I am going to stand with Deborah. Deborah, it is raining, pretty Deborah. Why aren't you complaining? Why not go inside and be where it is dry? Deborah, don't be shy with me. Even though you know that we just met, doesn't matter if we both get wet, in the rain or in the shining sun. Don't you know that you're my only one?
She even knew it. She knew it was time. So what, you know, and those guys, the Beatles, use big symphony orchestras. You.
We got some kids from the UCLA.
Oh, so you actually have
to do a string quartet, and you know, and they were great, and we got some friends who could play horns, you know, and it was like I said, it was like a Stone Soup. It was like as soon as I started doing it, the ball rolling, all of a sudden, all of these
people show up.
Who can do it.
Wow. This brings up a field, actually. What is the field of people who sounded like the Beatles and did a pretty good job of it? The Knickerbockers doing
The Knickerbockers,
Lies was the first thing, and that was certainly
And then Badfinger, the officially Apple-sanctioned Beatles sound alike.
Badfinger, Utopia.
It's like the what do you call it? The minor league team, the smaller
the
Beatles.
B
waiting.
team, yeah.
Yeah, right.
The Ruttles, of course.
The Ruttles, of course.
Well, actually,
And
Todd
Neil
Rundgren's interesting because he did not only a direct copy on his the one album of homages he did, Strawberry Fields, which was a direct note-for-note, faithful copy, and then, of course, with Utopia, Deface the Music was a Beatle-esque pastiche.
I'm going to have to get you my secret, not a secret anymore, 3 good Beatle knockoffs from an unknown band, which I loaned you, which I'm now failing to remember what the band was on
the Beardsley cover.
Right.
The Aubrey Beardsley
It remains a secret because when I go home, I'll make a copy of it. But it's 1973, and there's one. It's not a Beatle.
know them. I mean, it was a very
it's
obscure.
a very
I never
obscure
heard of it.
record.
Very
which
obscure.
All of a
record.
sudden, flipped out on me, and it's.
And it did. It sounded.
And it had solo.
One
it
in
had
particular
solo. It had
sounded.
George Harrison.
Yeah.
McCartney and Lennon.
Definitely.
Cool.
Very good.
Did you ever hear the National Lampoon thing, Magical Misery Tour?
Tragical
with John Lennon.
Magical Misery Tour. You know the thing Tony Hendra did.
Yeah, Tony Hendra. Right.
Really brilliant.
Yeah, he did a great job on that.
And then there's a whole subgenre of Paul McCartney sound-alikes. Emmett Rose, Fresh as a Daisy. And then McCartney's brother did an album, McGear, that was essentially a Wings album where McCartney wrote all the songs.
Wait, there was one called McGear. I mean, the
McGear,
one on
the Warner Brothers, yeah.
Lilliputian cover.
And that was he was tied down like Gulliver. And that album, if you listen to it, it's a great like Wings. It's the undiscovered Wings album because essentially it's a Paul McCartney and Wings with Linda singing the backgrounds, and except that the lead vocals are done by the brother Mike McGear, but it's all McCartney sort of vintage Wings era.
Strictly speaking, he's the half brother, isn't he?
No.
No, he's a full
Full
brother.
brother, absolutely.
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Giving George Harrison's sister.
And what about contact sightings of Beatles? Have you had any meetings?
No, I've not. Vince is I've known everybody who has met a Beatle, but not in every building. And Vince has a very good story. He told. I've known him for like 20 years almost, and he goes, oh yeah, and I got an autograph from John Lennon. I go, you got an autograph from him? You never even told me this. It's a great story.
But Vince, we have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes?
I don't think we can do this one 2 minutes.
I know Vince is
let's wrap it up.
Who's your friend?
Well, Ringo.
Yeah,
Richie.
He came to your wedding?
He sure did.
Oh.
That's nice.
He did, yeah. He's a good friend. Good guy.
And so...
I've never met any of the others.
Okay, there's no Beatle management company. I guess you could send it to Alan Klein. But is there any, have you submitted this?
Sued.
Have you submitted this
If you want
to
to be
anyone?
sued.
Invite the lawsuit.
To anybody of the
The
Beatle
closest it's gotten to
organization?
Beatles, a friend of mine who knows a manager who does work with Apple. I think his name is Andrew Tannenbaum, I think. And he's listened and liked it. And I think he said he was going to play it for
Neil Aspinall.
Neil Aspinall, although I haven't heard from. And then another friend of mine knows George's sister-in-law, and he was thinking of.
This is very indirect.
Yeah, indirectly.
Yeah.
Indirectly, and indirectly because I'm on The Simpsons. All the living Beatles have done the show, but I've never got
been
to
in the
meet
same
them.
room with him,
I
yeah.
could have met George Harrison, but the schedule didn't work out. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's not cool. That's terrible. But so, okay, there's more cuts in here. We're on the way out, which is coming up, unfortunately. Would you like to? We're going to do another cut. We can
Yeah, well, let's play Tulips, the one that
which is number 11.
sort of
when
a
we're
title.
ready to go out. Yeah.
That was the first song.
So once again, Dan Castellaneta, thank you, Vince Waldron,
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks, Art.
This is Dan's album called TWO Lips, and it's not out. You got to know.
It's out. If you see me, I'll give you one.
It's unbelievably, and it's really neat. Who else? Do we know anybody else that's like done? I mean, the word vanity album comes in, but it's not your vanity. It's like your.
All
it's
the
your,
Knack
it's your-
albums. All the recent Knack albums are vanity albums.
you can't buy them.
You can't buy them. You can't get them in the stores. But it wasn't designed that way.
He didn't do it on purpose.
It was just
Christmas
a record company.
On this green, green